Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're diving into Stoicism.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, specifically through Epictetus and his Handbook.
Okay.
This is a collection of teachings from this, I guess you could call him a fascinating figure,
Yeah.
who remarkably started life as a slave
Uh-huh.
and ended up as a renowned philosopher in ancient Greece.
Wow. Yeah, his background really does add a unique dimension to his teachings,
Yeah.
especially when you consider how, practical and down-to-earth his approach is.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack some of the core principles of Stoicism
Okay.
as presented by Epictetus, and
All right.
kind of see how these surprisingly relevant ideas from about 2,000 years ago can
Oh.
still be so valuable today.
Yeah, it's amazing how, these ancient thinkers grappled with
Yeah.
many of the same human challenges
Yeah.
that we face now. Things like navigating social pressures,
Uh-huh.
coping with loss, and
Yeah.
finding a sense of purpose.
Exactly. So let's just jump right into one of the most fundamental ideas in Stoicism, okay?
Okay.
And it's this concept that some things are up to us and some are not.
Oh.
You hear this all the time.
Right.
What is it about this idea that's really powerful, and how can it actually help someone live a better life?
Well, it's all about recognizing the difference between what you can directly control, like your thoughts, your judgments, your actions, and what you can't control.
Okay.
So things like external events, other people's opinions, even your own health
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent.
I can see how that could be helpful. But
Yeah.
doesn't it also seem a bit passive?
Right.
Like, if you just accept everything, doesn't that limit your ability to, make changes or fight for what you believe in?
Yeah, that's a really common misunderstanding.
Yeah, okay.
Stoicism isn't about passively accepting everything that happens.
Right.
It's about choosing where you focus your energy.
Okay.
So instead of wasting your energy on things that you can't control,
Uh-huh.
you focus on what you can. So instead of stressing about whether you get that promotion, you focus on doing the best job you can.
Okay.
Instead of getting upset that someone cut you off in traffic, you choose to let it go and focus on getting to your destination safely.
So it's more about picking your battles wisely.
Exactly. And what Epictetus would say is that
Okay.
the only battle truly worth fighting is the battle for your own mind.
Mm.
Because if you can control your thoughts and reactions,
Okay.
then nothing can truly harm you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how does this idea of control
Right.
play out in everyday life?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say, just focus on what you can control.
Huh.
But when you're in the middle of a stressful situation, it's not always easy to do.
Right. That's where the practice comes in.
Okay.
Epictetus talks a lot about this idea of training your mind, just like you would train your body.
Uh-huh.
The more you practice recognizing what's in your control and what's not,
Okay.
the easier it becomes to respond to challenges
Yeah.
in a more calm and rational way.
Okay.
He doesn't say it's easy, but he does say it's possible and it's worth the effort.
So it's almost like building a mental muscle,
Yes.
strengthening your ability to stay calm and focused,
Yeah,
even when things around you are chaotic.
precisely.
Yeah.
And the more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it becomes. And that's what can ultimately lead to a greater sense of inner peace and freedom.
It's making more sense now. You're not just letting life happen to you. You're taking control of your inner world, which then gives you more agency in how you navigate the external world.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
And that ties directly into another core concept that Epictetus explores in the Handbook,
Okay.
desire and aversion.
This is where he talks about how much of our unhappiness
Yeah,
comes from wanting things we can't control,
right,
or fearing things we can't avoid.
right. Think about it.
Yeah.
How much of your stress and anxiety
Oh, yeah.
comes from clinging to things you have no guarantee of keeping,
Uh-huh.
or worrying about things that haven't even happened?
That's pretty much me in a nutshell. So what's the Stoic solution to this?
Right.
Just to become completely detached and indifferent to everything.
Well, it's not about becoming indifferent to everything. It's about aligning your desires with what's actually possible
Yeah.
and within your control. Epictetus uses this powerful analogy of a banquet.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah,
It's where he compares life to a banquet where dishes are constantly being passed around.
exactly. You can take your portion when it comes to you,
Okay.
but there's no need to grasp at what's already passed or stress about what hasn't come your way yet.
Right.
It's about enjoying what's in front of you
Right.
and accepting that you don't get to control the menu or the order in which things are served.
So how does someone actually apply this to their life? I mean, it's easy to understand the banquet analogy,
Yeah.
but it's harder to put it into practice when you're dealing with real life situations,
Right.
like a job interview or a relationship that's not working out.
It's about recognizing that you can control your effort, your preparation, your attitude, but you can't control the outcome.
Right.
You can go into that job interview having done your best to prepare, present yourself well, but you can't force them to hire you. You can put effort into nurturing a relationship, but you can't control how the other person feels or behaves.
So it's about focusing on the process,
Yes.
not just the outcome.
Exactly. And by focusing on the process, on what's within your control,
Okay.
you're more likely to find a sense of peace and satisfaction, regardless of the outcome.
Okay.
And perhaps paradoxically, by letting go of the need to control the outcome, you might even be more likely to achieve what you desire.
Because you're not so attached to the outcome that you get paralyzed by fear or anxiety.
Exactly. You're able to act with more freedom and confidence because you're not weighed down by the need to control the uncontrollable.
This is really making me think about how much mental energy I waste worrying about things that are outside my control. What's interesting is that it's not just about external events, it's also about our own internal reactions to those events. And that brings us to the whole concept of appearances in Stoicism.
You're right. It's not just about what happens to us,
Yeah.
but how we interpret those events. The Stoics believed that it's not the events themselves that cause us suffering,
Right.
but our judgments about them.
This feels like a pretty radical idea.
It is.
So you're saying that even in really difficult situations, like losing a loved one or experiencing a major setback, our suffering is primarily a result of our own thoughts about the situation,
Right.
not the situation itself.
It's not to say that those situations aren't objectively difficult,
Okay.
but the Stoics would argue that
Yeah.
the intensity of our suffering is often amplified by our own judgments and interpretations.
Okay.
They would say that it's not the loss itself that causes the most pain, but the way we choose to think about that loss.
Can you give me a specific example?
Sure. Let's say you lose your job.
Okay.
The objective event is the loss of employment,
Right.
but then you start adding your judgments on top of that. Okay.
I'm a failure. I'll never find another job. I'm going to lose my house.
Hmm.
Those judgments are what create the feelings of anxiety, fear, and despair.
So it's about separating the objective event
Yes.
from our subjective interpretation of it.
Precisely. And that's where the real work of Stoicism begins.
Okay.
It's about becoming aware of our own judgments,
Okay.
questioning their validity,
Uh-huh.
and choosing to see things from a different perspective.
It sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy in a way.
There are definitely some parallels there.
Okay.
Both Stoicism and CBT
Yeah.
emphasize the power of our thoughts
Right.
to shape our emotions and behaviors.
Uh-huh.
But the Stoics go a step further
Okay.
by offering a whole framework for living a virtuous life,
Okay.
of which managing your thoughts is just one part.
Okay. I'm starting to get the bigger picture here.
Good.
It's not about denying or suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding where those emotions come from.
Right. And choosing to respond to them in a way that's aligned with your values and principles.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
And this ability to manage your thoughts and emotions
Yeah.
is what ultimately gives you more freedom and control over your life.
Okay.
Because when you're not ruled by your emotions, you're able to make clear, rational decisions, even in difficult situations.
I can already see how this could be helpful in so many areas of my life.
Right.
From my relationships to my work to my overall sense of well-being.
Yeah.
But how do I even start to put this into practice?
Well, one practical tip that Epictetus gives in the Handbook is to be mindful of your speech.
Okay, he talks about being silent for the most part.
All right.
Or saying what you have to in a few words. It
Yeah.
seems pretty simple, but how does that tie into the bigger picture of Stoicism?
It's about recognizing that every word you speak is a choice.
Okay.
And by choosing your words carefully, you're exercising control over your thoughts and actions. Think about it. How often do you say things you later regret?
Oh, all the time.
Or let your emotions get the better of you in a conversation?
All the time. Especially when I'm feeling stressed or angry.
Right.
So you're saying that by being more mindful of my speech,
Yeah,
I can actually start to gain more control over my emotions.
exactly. It's not about never expressing your feelings,
Okay.
but about doing so in a way that's thoughtful and deliberate, rather than reactive and impulsive.
This is all so fascinating, and I
Yeah.
can see how it could be incredibly helpful.
Uh-huh.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
Is there anything else Epictetus has to say about this idea of
Yes.
controlling appearances and avoiding rash speech?
Yes. He also suggests paying attention to the way you react to external things,
Okay.
like praise and criticism.
Okay, so how does someone stay grounded when they're getting a lot of positive attention?
Remember how we talked about appearances?
Yeah.
That concept applies here.
Okay.
Epictetus would say that just because someone praises you doesn't mean you're automatically a good person.
Right.
And just because someone criticizes you
Right.
doesn't mean you're automatically a bad person.
So it's about not letting external validation inflate your ego
Exactly.
or external criticism deflate your sense of self-worth.
It's about keeping a balanced perspective and recognizing that true self-worth comes from within,
Okay.
from your own commitment to living a virtuous life,
Uh-huh.
not from what other people think of you.
This is all starting to feel really empowering.
It is.
Like if I can master my own thoughts and reactions,
Yeah.
then nothing can really shake me.
That's the essence of Stoicism.
Hmm.
It's about finding that inner strength and resilience that allows you to navigate life's ups and downs with more grace and composure.
This is a lot to take in, but it's all starting to make sense. So before we move on to the next concept, can we recap what we've learned so far?
Sure.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Stoic idea of focusing on what's in your control, which leads to more inner peace and freedom. We've explored the concepts of desire and aversion and how to align your desires with what's actually possible.
Right.
And we've delved into the idea of appearances
Yeah.
and how it's not the events themselves that cause us suffering, but our judgments about them.
Right.
We even touched on practical ways to manage those judgments, like being mindful of your speech and reactions.
This is definitely a lot to think about,
Yeah.
but I'm already starting to see how these principles could make a real difference in my life.
Yeah.
I'm eager to learn more.
Great. Let's dive deeper into how Stoicism applies to the way we interact with the world around us.
Okay.
We'll explore the concept of living in accord with nature
All right.
and see what that might look like in practice.
Perfect.
Yeah. So building on this idea of controlling what you can, like your reactions, your judgments, Stoicism encourages us to think about how we fit into the bigger picture.
Okay.
That's where this idea of living in accord with nature comes in.
Okay, this one always trips me up a bit. I get that it's like a core Stoic concept. Right.
But to be honest, it sounds a bit vague
Yeah,
and, I don't know, maybe even a bit granola for
Right.
someone like me living in a big city.
I hear you. It's definitely one of those concepts that can feel a bit abstract at first,
Yeah.
but when you break it down, it's actually very practical and relevant to anyone,
Okay.
regardless of where they live or what they do.
Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for me.
Okay.
What does it actually mean to live in accord with nature? Especially for someone like me who isn't exactly a nature enthusiast.
At its heart, it's about recognizing that we are part of something larger than ourselves,
Okay.
a rational order that governs the universe.
Okay.
The Stoics believed that this rational order,
Mm-hmm.
or logos,
Yeah, okay.
permeates everything,
Right.
and that true happiness comes from aligning ourselves with it.
So it's not about literally going back to nature, but about understanding our place in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we are interconnected with everything and everyone around us.
And that our actions have ripple effects.
Uh-huh.
It's about acting in a way that's harmonious with the natural flow of the universe,
Yeah.
rather than trying to force things to go our way all the time.
I'm starting to see how this connects back to the idea of control.
Yeah.
If I'm constantly trying to control things I can't, I'm essentially working against the natural order of things,
Yeah.
which is bound to create friction and frustration.
You got it. And that friction and frustration
Yeah.
is what often leads to unhappiness and suffering.
Uh-huh.
But when you accept what is,
Okay.
when you let go of the need to control everything,
Right.
you create more space for peace and acceptance.
Okay, that's making more sense now.
Good.
But how does someone actually put this into practice? What does it look like to live in accord with nature in day-to-day life?
It can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
For example, it might mean being more mindful of your consumption habits,
Okay.
considering the impact your choices have on the environment.
Mm-hmm.
It might mean treating others with kindness and respect,
Oh,
or recognizing that we're all interconnected.
right.
It might mean finding joy in simple things, appreciating the beauty of the natural world,
Uh-huh.
even if it's just a tree growing through the cracks in the sidewalk.
So it's about finding ways to connect with something larger than yourself, whether that's through nature, community, or even just acts of kindness and compassion.
Exactly. It's about finding your place in the grand scheme of things and acting in a way that contributes to the overall harmony, rather than creating more discord.
This is all really resonating with me, but there's still a part of me that's wondering,
Yeah.
how does this idea of living in accord with nature square with the Stoic emphasis on reason? Aren't those two things kind of contradictory?
Yeah.
Like one is about following your intuition and feelings,
Right.
and the other is about using logic and reason.
That's a great question, and it points to a really important distinction.
Okay.
The Stoics weren't anti-emotion.
Okay.
They recognized that emotions are a natural part of the human experience. But they believed that our emotions should be guided by reason, not the other way around.
So it's not about suppressing your emotions, but about using your reason to understand and manage them.
Precisely. Think of reason as the charioteer,
Okay.
guiding the horses of your emotions.
Okay.
If the charioteer loses control, the horses will run wild and take you off course.
Right.
But if the charioteer is skilled and in control,
Okay.
the horses can be powerful allies,
Right.
helping you navigate the course with speed and grace.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense.
Good.
So living in accord with nature is about using my reason to understand my place in the world and my emotions to inform my actions in a way that's aligned with that understanding.
You're getting it. It's about finding that sweet spot
Okay.
where reason and emotion work together harmoniously.
This is also fascinating, but
Yeah.
I can already hear some of our listeners saying, okay, but what does this actually look like in practice?
Right.
Give me some concrete examples.
Well, Epictetus talks about this in the Handbook when he discusses the concept of fulfilling your task or role in the universe.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
He says each of us has a unique role to play,
Right.
and that by fulfilling that role with excellence and integrity, we contribute to the overall harmony of things.
Exactly. So what might this look like for you?
Yeah.
Well, it could be as simple as showing up to work every day
Okay.
and doing your job to the best of your ability, knowing that you're contributing to the economy
Right.
and providing a valuable service to others.
Okay.
It could be being a good friend or family member, offering support and encouragement to those you love.
Okay.
It could be volunteering your time to a cause you believe in, using your skills and talents to make a positive impact on your community.
So it's not about trying to change the world in some grand sweeping way,
Right.
but about finding those small, everyday ways to make a difference.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even the seemingly insignificant actions can have a ripple effect, contributing to the overall well-being of the world.
This reminds me of that quote from Mother Teresa.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love.
That's a perfect example. It's not about the size of the action,
Right.
but the intention and the spirit behind it.
This is also inspiring, but it also feels like a lot of responsibility. Like, how do I know what my task is?
Yeah.
What if I choose the wrong path or I'm not good enough?
That's where the Stoic emphasis on self-awareness and reflection comes in.
Okay.
Epictetus would say that you don't need to have all the answers right away. It's about paying attention to your own natural inclinations,
Okay.
your skills and your passions.
Right.
What are you good at?
Yeah.
What do you enjoy doing?
Right.
What brings you a sense of purpose and fulfillment?
So it's about listening to my inner compass and trusting that it will guide me in the right direction.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. It's a process of exploration and discovery.
Right.
And it's okay to make mistakes along the way.
Right.
The important thing is to keep learning and growing
Okay.
and striving to align your actions with your values and your understanding of your place in the world.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on the idea of finding your purpose. It's not about some grand destiny that's predetermined, but about actively choosing to live a life that feels meaningful and purposeful based on your own unique skills and values.
Now you're getting it. And the beautiful thing is that you don't need to wait for some external validation or permission to start living that life. You can start right now, today, by making small choices that align with your understanding of your task and your place in the world.
This is all so empowering, but it also raises some interesting questions. Like, if everyone is focused on fulfilling their own task, what happens when those tasks conflict? What about competition and ambition? Don't those things go against the Stoic idea of harmony and interconnectedness?
Those are great questions. And they bring us to another key aspect of Stoicism.
Okay.
The role of reason in navigating our interactions with others.
Okay.
We'll explore that in the next part of our deep dive.
So we've been talking about finding your purpose, like your task in the universe,
Right.
and how that ties into this larger idea of living in accord with nature.
Yeah.
It all sounds great in theory, but like the world
Yeah.
can feel pretty competitive
Right,
and
yeah.
cutthroat sometimes.
Yeah.
How does Stoicism address that?
That's where the Stoic emphasis on reason and virtue really comes into play.
Okay.
Remember, it's not just about understanding these concepts intellectually. It's about embodying them in your actions and interactions with others.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Okay.
How does reason help me navigate a world that often feels like driven by ego and self-interest?
Well, reason helps you distinguish between what is truly important,
Okay.
virtue, wisdom, justice,
Okay.
and what is ultimately indifferent, wealth, fame, power. The Stoics would say that those external things might be nice to have, but they don't define your worth or your happiness.
So it's about keeping your priorities straight.
Exactly.
Not getting so caught up in the pursuit of external success that you lose sight of your values.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from living a virtuous life, from acting in accordance with reason and justice, even when it's difficult or it doesn't seem to benefit you directly.
This makes me think about all those times I've compromised my values or acted in ways I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
Just to get ahead or to please other people. Is that what the Stoics would call being like enslaved by externals?
They might say that you're allowing your choices to be dictated by things outside your control.
Right.
Rather than by your own reasoned judgment.
Okay.
And that can lead to a sense of inner conflict and unhappiness.
Yeah.
Even if you achieve those external goals.
This is really making me question some of the choices I've made in the past. But it also feels incredibly freeing to think that I have the power to choose differently.
Yeah.
To act in a way that's more aligned with my values, even if it means sacrificing some short-term gains.
That's the power of Stoic philosophy. It doesn't offer easy answers,
Right.
but it gives you a framework for making choices that are in line with your highest self, even when it's hard.
This brings us back to that idea of indifference that we talked about earlier. It's not about not caring about anything.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what truly matters and what doesn't.
Right. And it's about recognizing that you can value things without making your happiness dependent on them.
Can you give me some examples of how this might play out in real life?
Sure.
It's such an abstract concept.
Yeah. Let's say you're really passionate about your work.
Okay.
You can put your heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
Strive for excellence and find deep satisfaction in doing your best, but you don't attach your entire sense of self-worth to whether or not you get a promotion or external recognition.
Okay.
You understand that those things are ultimately outside your control.
Right.
And that true fulfillment comes from the process itself.
Yeah.
From the act of creating and contributing.
So it's about finding joy in the journey.
Exactly.
Not just the destination.
And that applies to relationships too.
Okay.
You can love your partner deeply.
Yeah.
Cherish your time together. Nurture the relationship with care and attention.
Okay.
But you also recognize that you don't control their feelings or their choices.
Right.
And you accept that even the deepest love doesn't guarantee a happily ever after.
This is such a different way of thinking about love and relationships.
It is.
It's not about clinging or possessiveness.
Right.
It's about appreciating the present moment and accepting that change is inevitable.
Exactly. It's about loving freely without attachment or expectation.
Okay.
And that kind of love is ultimately more resilient because it's not dependent on external circumstances staying the same.
This all makes sense.
Good.
But there's one area where I'm still struggling to apply this idea of indifference.
Okay.
And that's when it comes to death and loss.
Right.
How can you possibly be indifferent to something as painful and heartbreaking as that?
You're right. Death is a natural part of life.
Right.
And grief is a natural response to loss.
Yeah.
Stoicism doesn't deny that.
Okay.
What it offers is a way to navigate those difficult emotions with more grace and resilience.
Okay.
Remember what Epictetus says in the Handbook.
Yeah.
Never say about anything, I have lost it,
Yeah.
but instead I have given it back.
That's a really powerful reframing.
It is.
Can you elaborate on that?
Think of it this way. Everything we have in life,
Okay.
our loved ones,
Yeah.
our possessions, even our own bodies,
Right.
are ultimately gifts.
Yeah.
We're entrusted with them for a time, but they don't truly belong to us.
Right.
And just as they were given to us, they could be taken away.
So it's about acknowledging that we don't have ultimate control over life and death.
Right. And by recognizing that, we can shift our perspective from one of ownership
Okay.
to one of gratitude.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what we've lost,
Yeah.
we can focus on the time we were given,
Huh?
the joy and love we experienced, and the memories we'll always carry with us.
It's not about denying the pain of loss,
Right.
but about finding a way to hold that pain alongside gratitude and acceptance.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that grief is a natural part of the cycle of life,
Uh-huh.
and that even in the midst of loss,
Yeah.
there is still beauty and meaning to be found.
This has been such an eye-opening exploration of Stoicism.
It has.
What started as a deep dive into Epictetus and his Handbook
Right.
has turned into a journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
and a new way of looking at the world.
It's amazing how these ancient philosophies can still speak to us so directly today,
Yeah.
offering timeless wisdom for navigating the challenges of human existence.
Absolutely. And, if you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, or just looking for a different way of approaching life,
Yeah.
I encourage you to explore Stoicism further. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And remember, you don't have to become a Stoic sage overnight.
Right.
Just take it one step at a time,
Yeah.
one principle at a time,
Yeah.
and see how these ideas can help you live a more meaningful, fulfilling, and resilient life.
This has been another great deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.